And that orange sprinkle is triggering me, so I'm gonna pluck him out. Hey mates, I'm Katherine Sabbath. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we are making my upside down ice cream cone cake. It's one of my most loved cakes and it's been recreated so many times. I do have the recipe for you in my latest cookbook and in the description of this video, but this is the first time I have ever done a how-to video on this cake. Let's do it. So for this cake, I'm making a lemon sponge cake. I like this recipe because it's really easy to make, it cools down really quickly, and it's delicious. So for our sponge cake, the basic ingredients are butter, sugar, eggs, flour, and some lemon. I've got the recipe for you in the description of this video. I've just got some unsalted butter here. You can use salted as well, but I just prefer unsalted for this recipe. It's softened. All I did was I took this straight out of the fridge, microwaved it for about 30 seconds, and that's my cheats way of getting softened butter in a hurry. Pour in some sugar. I'm using caster sugar for this recipe. Just blends in. Get in there. We're creaming the butter and the sugar together until it's light and fluffy. And just start slow at first because you don't want chunks of butter and sugar flying all over the place. So start nice and slow. Let that butter and sugar combine and then go a little bit faster. I'm using a handheld mixer just because I enjoy doing this. If you have a kitchen mixer, a stand version, like the one behind me, you can definitely use that too, but I like being able to feel the mixer and have fun with it, be more part of the process. This really doesn't take too long, especially if you're using caster sugar. It dissolves really quickly through the butter. Yeah, you can already see it's so nice and pale. Light and fluffy, that's what we want. Okay, now I'm just adding the eggs one at a time while I mix. Ooh, bench is clean. Okay, Eggy, last one. I'm going to add just a little bit of flour to this mixture, just to thicken it up. Sometimes it does cream everything a lot better when you've just got a little bit of friction in there from the flour. You don't have to add too much. If you see that the egg starts to split a little bit from the butter, then add a little bit of flour. It just helps kind of emulsify it all back together again. There we go, beautiful. So that's the base of our sponge. Just scrape that again. Okay, now we're gonna add the flour in some hot water, but for that I need to turn the kettle on. This just needs to take about a minute. Now we just wait. I should have turned the kettle on earlier. Just wait for water to boil. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm just adding flour, tablespoon at a time, and then mixing this in. Now for sponge cake, traditionally you should be folding in the flour, but I'm lazy and I've made this so many times and it works every time. So feel free to beat in the flour into your sponge cake. Oh yeah, a lot of people sift their flour too, but I think if you're using a really good grade of cake flour, you don't need to sift. I hardly sift my flour. I don't think I've sifted my flour in about 8 years. Again, when you're mixing this through, just go really slowly at first, otherwise you'll end up with a plume of flour in your face. I'm using hot water for this because it does loosen the batter and it also helps to activate the baking powder in the flour and it allows the mixture to become light and fluffy, which is what we want in a sponge. I'm happy with how that looks. I'm just gonna dump in the rest of my flour. If you've got your mixer on low like I have, it won't knock out all the air pockets. So this is the base of a sponge cake. It's my favorite, easiest type of sponge cake. You can flavor it with different things. You can add some cinnamon to this, any other spices, but I'm gonna be adding some fresh lemon zest to really bring out the flavor of the lemon and the butter in this sponge. I had a whisk on the table and I didn't even use it, but that's okay. Fresh lemon, I've washed the peel. I think I'll have about 3 3 teaspoons of lemon zest in this. It depends how much of a lemon fan you are. You can add some lemon juice too, but I think the lemon zest is enough for this recipe. I think 3 teaspoons of lemon zest is basically a whole lemon. Just folding it in with my spatula. You can see that I'll show you soon that this batter is nice and fluffy. Lemon sponge cake batter. Now we've got our sponge cake, we're going to bake it into layers. So now I'm just dividing my cake into cake tins, and I'm using layer tins instead of having like a 3-inch deep cake tin, because it's just so much faster to bake in layers and it's so much faster to cool as well. So you can just buy these from cake decorating stores. They're basically layer cake tins. Now we have to grease our cake tins. I don't want to do this towards the camera. I'm just using some cooking oil spray. Doing this in the sink is a really good idea. Okay, now we're going to put our batter in the cake tins. You can use a scale for this to figure out how many grams you're putting in each, but really, you don't have to do that. It's just so much easier to go by eye. I'll start with, say, 2 spatulas in each at first. Just spreading this out with my spatula. So now we're popping these in a preheated oven at 160 degrees. And we're cooking them for about, say, 15-20 minutes. So I've just got my cakes in the oven and they're going to cook for about 15 to 20 minutes or until golden on top. My cake layers are cooked and I'm just gonna pop them upside down to cool completely. When you pop them upside down, it helps create that flat top. See some of these cake layers? I overfilled them a little bit. I mean, it's good to have offcuts, but if you want really nice, even layers on the outside, just grab a pair of scissors and just trim them. Just give your cake a little haircut. Now that I've got my even and perfectly bouncy cake layers, let's make some Swiss meringue buttercream. I've just finished a batch of Swiss meringue buttercream and I'm going to use that to layer and fill my cakes. But you can use any kind of buttercream for this recipe. My personal preference is a meringue buttercream and I've got an in-depth recipe for you on my channel. Let's layer these cakes. Now I'm putting some blueberry jam in between my cake layers. Personal preference, you can use whatever you'd like. I find this is really easy, convenient. Sometimes I'll make a lemon curd, a passion fruit curd, or a berry coulis. Today I had some blueberry jam in the pantry and that's what I'm going to use. I'll just get my spatula, just gently crumb coat the outside and then pop this in the fridge to set before we add our next layers. I'm just doing a crumb coat at the moment, even though it looks like I'm putting a lot of icing on. I'm just making sure that the cake is covered and then I'll scrape most of it off. The crumb coat, basically, it does what it says on the label. It's keeping the crumbs in the coating of your cake so that when you do the final layer of icing, you don't have any crumbs in that. Just scraping off excess buttercream with my cake scraper. When you've got a good amount on your scraper, just spatula it off. It makes it a lot easier to work with when your cake scraper is clean. And if you accidentally scrape off too much or you've got some gaps in your buttercream, kind of like what I've got there, just get your spatula, take it off your scraper, and then you can fill in any gaps. Now to smooth the top of your cake, a clean offset metal spatula. I've got a paper towel in my hand so I can clean my spatula in between, and you'll see why. So you can either go this way, or you can go that way, or this way. I like to pull towards me. So it's just one side, and then clean, and then this side, and then just keep going around your cake until you're happy with it. One more. Okay. All right, I'm done. So now the cake is in the fridge, setting away. We're making our white chocolate ganache. I'm just doing 1 part white chocolate and 1 part cream. I've got 300 grams white chocolate here, and I'll add about 300 grams cream. And mix that together a little bit. And I just put this in the microwave, heating gently for 1 minute at a time. Heat it for 1 minute, mix it, heat it for another minute until melted. So this is the 3rd time I've heated the cream and the white chocolate. So it's been heating up for about 3 minutes now, a minute each time, stirring in between. And I can see that my chocolate is definitely melting, so I'll just keep stirring. Just mixing everything together and making sure the chocolate and the cream are blending nicely together. So as you can see, chocolate has fully melted and mixed through the cream. I'm going to color our ganache now. I'm going to choose a nice violet lavender color, but of course you can do whichever color you like. This is just one of my favorite colors. This is an oil-based coloring, but a gel-based or a powder-based coloring will also work. Once you're happy with the shade, now don't forget, once the ganache starts to set, the color will become a little bit more opaque. So even though it's kind of like a darker violet now, once it sets, it'll be a nice light violet color. And I'll pop this in the fridge to thicken up. That will take about, I'd say, half an hour. Now we're making the ice cream cone part of the cake. I've got some white chocolate melts that I've just melted in the microwave. Heat these at 1 minute, stirring in between. Takes about 2-3 minutes for them to melt, just from your local supermarket. And I'm going to color this white chocolate the same color as my ganache strips. So I've got my favorite lavender color again. So now that my white chocolate is colored, and again, I've colored it the same color as my ganache strips, and that is because I'm going to cover the cone in this color, but also the actual ice cream scoop will be covered in this color as well, and then dipped again in the ganache. So I want the ganache and the white chocolate to be similar in color. Doesn't have to be exact, but just around the same shade. Now I'm going to decorate my ice cream cone. You don't have to do this, but I think it adds a nice touch. Just dip your ice cream cone in, say about 1 centimeter. Shake off any excess chocolate. Dip in some sprinkles. Everything looks better with sprinkles. And then set this to the side on baking paper to set. There we go. For my ice cream scoop, yes, you can use a scoop of buttercream, but I don't really enjoy eating that much buttercream. So the inside of my ice cream cone is actually just a cake pop. So I've used leftover cake, or you can go to the supermarket, buy a muffin, anything round that tastes like cake. And all I did was just squash it, and I popped this in the freezer. Anytime I have leftover cake, I just roll it in a ball and pop it in the freezer, and I'll use it for things like cake pops or the scoop for my ice cream cone. And all I do is I just pop this in and coat this very generously. It should set really fast. Got my 2 spoons. with your 2 spoons. Pick it up, just pop it onto some baking paper. Now to get that really awesome ice cream scoop effect, I'm just going to spoon over some more melted chocolate, and that will make it look like it's melting. Awesome. And now before this chocolate sets, it's still nice and melted, we need to be able to stick the cone on top. So I can see the chocolate's still shiny, so it hasn't set yet. So just decide, do you want your ice cream facing this way, that way? I think it looks good that way. Awesome. And now I just put this in the fridge. It only needs about 5 or 10 minutes and then it will set. I've got my ice cream cake pop and I'm going to cover that in the ganache. I'm doing this so that it blends in with my ganache drips and also so the sprinkles have something to stick to. Now we're going to lift this onto our cake. Give it a little twist. Beautiful. Our ice cream, upside down ice cream cone is in position. Now let's do our ganache drips. I've got my bowl of ganache and I've got a tablespoon. You can use a teaspoon if you want smaller drips, but I think this is good for a cake of this height. I would like to get a good amount of ganache on my spoon. Grab some ganache, pop it close to the edge and just use your spoon to gently encourage it over. And then just have a look and see how quickly it drips. If it drips too quickly, you can always use your spoon to pull it away from the edge. Yep, I'm happy with that, so I'll decorate the rest of my cake. And I want this one to be nice and fat. My ganache drips to go too far, so I'll just pop this in the fridge for about 5-10 minutes. Okay, very happy with this, but it's not done. We still need to add some sprinkles. Now, there's no real technique to doing this because you kind of need to get the sprinkles on the side of the cone. Just kind of sprinkle them on, literally. For the bits around the bottom of the scoop, you kind of just have to throw them on. Like, get in there. I wish I had like a little sprinkle gun that can just be like, throw like a tiny little sprinkle cannon. You can see why I chose a lighter buttercream because the sprinkles on this cake are rather loud. Yeah, this orange one is kind of annoying me. Look, I know it's hard to control sprinkles. They do have a mind of their own and sprinkles are meant to be chaotic fun, but like, sometimes I want a little bit of controlled chaos and that orange sprinkle is triggering me. So I'm gonna pluck him out. Okay, and there we have it. My finished upside down ice cream cone cake. Perfect for any party, or perfect for my own birthday. I hope you've enjoyed this video and feel free to get creative at home. Please have fun with this cake.